Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Hey, Youth Worker Nation, this is Doug Edwards, and this is Youth Worker on Fire. Today, I am so excited to have Coach Rich and Coach Betsy Billings. They just got married about May, I think it was, yep. Right, guys?
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Each have their own accolades, and I'm just real excited for you to be here today because I love you guys anyway, but for the people in Youth Worker Nation to get some real value from you, which you automatically give. That's just who you are, okay?
Hope so.
So listen, here we're going to start with anywhere between middle school, high school, college. Give me that one coach, teacher, pastor, volunteer that just the light bulbs came on or you felt like, oh my gosh, I can go on because this guy, this lady. Who is that person?
Oh man, I guess I will go first. I had several people, but if I had to choose one person from when I was pretty young, I would say Linda DeShera. She was my fourth grade teacher, and she was the one person that just pushed me past my limits even then, and was very supportive outside of school in sports and that sort of thing. It was supportive of my family, and so she was a wonderful Christian woman and passed away a few years ago, or last year maybe even. She was a huge part in supporting me and pushing me towards going to college and chasing my dreams.
So since fourth grade, she actually followed you. You guys stayed in touch, and it sounds that way anyway.
Right, yeah. She, her family and my family were very close. She had 3 boys, and then we all were a little bit paired together in ages. So, we stayed together through high school and then went off to college together with a couple of her sons. So we kept in touch for sure.
Wow. Now, fourth grade, that should say a lot to teachers, that those impact things with people can go for a long time.
Absolutely.
So, Rich, what about you?
I would say Randy Wilson for me. He was one of my high school baseball coaches. He was the head coach at Leesburg High School my freshman and sophomore year. I actually took him in summer school before my 9th grade year. I took a health class in summer school just to get it out of the way, and he was the teacher. And so I got to know him before I came into high school, and it was just kind of, it was clear to me by the time I had finished that summer class that that's the guy that I wanted to play for. I don't know, he gave me a chance, and it started out as that, just him giving me a chance as a freshman to play varsity baseball, and he encouraged me and just sort of loved me from there, and that was all he had to do, and I could tell that he cared about me, and to me that was kind of the spark.
Well, that's what I hear from both of you about these people, is that you felt love from them. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is, and I've had this thing with a few people at Disney University, one of my friends was in charge of that, and one of their courses was the 5 love languages for a business school. 14,000 went through it there a year, and I'd used some of that before, but you're saying the very same thing. They touched your love language, whatever that is, and Gary Chapman writes about that. You can be tested for free. One of the shows I said the wrong name, but it's Gary Chapman who wrote the 5 love languages. So you said love because that's what you felt, and what you continue to feel with these guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
think we actually read that book, and I don't know when, a couple of years ago maybe, but I would say that what I like to give is gifts, but what I like to get is quality time. And for me, that's what she did. She spent extra time with me in school and then out of school and was very supportive. So I think that definitely plays a part in it.
So which one is your top love language that you think is yours?
That I like to get, receive? Definitely quality time. So that's for anyone. I would rather get that versus gifts or anything else. What are the other ones? Touch, community service, maybe, I think, somewhere in there. But yeah, and for him, what did we decide? What do we think yours were? He likes words of affirmation.
Yeah, I needed words of affirmation.
I think all of us guys have lined up for that one.
Yeah.
Guys especially need that, but if you take that test and you find out that when it comes to the top, that's it.
Yep.
And so that's great. So love language is a big deal. Now tell me about how you ended up coaching on a college level. And by the way, I read up on you last night. Yeah, because I said I know Rich pretty well, and I know you were the youngest varsity baseball coach in the United States to be hired. Is that right?
At 23, when I was hired at Lake Sumter,
yes,
as the head coach there at 23. At the time, I was the youngest college head coach in the nation. That is correct.
Yes, and by one of your good friends, Mike Matulia.
Yep.
And interviewed Mike not long ago. He talks about you, talks about Black Mountain,
Yeah.
taking Jacob with you.
I listened
you know.
to it. I heard that.
That's good. Tell me why your friend kind of coached you toward or encouraged you toward athletics yourself.
She never coached me specifically, but all three
emotionally she did.
Yeah, absolutely, emotionally
Yeah.
she did. All three of her sons played baseball, and so my brother played baseball with her sons, and so I always had an interest in being at the ball field and just being around sports in general, and so that's kind of how I got my taste of sports and grew up playing soccer and running track and cross country and that sort of thing. And I'm not very athletic, it turns out, but I loved being around sports, so she definitely played a part in that, and I think it was due in large part to me being competitive with my brother. So
you don't consider yourself athletic?
No, not necessarily.
But you are a fitness buff. You like to stay fit, and right?
I do, right, yep.
Yeah, and that's why you went toward those degrees that you went to.
Absolutely.
And that's funny because I majored in music, but I took a PE course every semester because I love fitness, and I was no good. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Further confirmed there's others out there.
That's right. You can still be fit,
Yes.
but not be a sports.
Right. Not athletic, yeah. Not
But
like
I'll
this.
tell you what, the football team, though, lacrosse at Mercer,
Yes, sir.
said a lot of good things about you in that article. Rich, good things are said about you all the time. I've been chaplain for the baseball team. This is our 6th year.
Yep.
Tell us about volunteers. Where are volunteers in your programs that you guys have encountered? Are they important at all?
Yes, absolutely. I think not only are they important to our program, but it shows our student athletes the importance. When they see people giving their time, it shows our student athletes the importance of learning to serve others, because we live in a I hate to say it, we live in a self-serving society where it's all about me, and there are some student athletes that come through our programs that don't understand. They've never been, they've never had the opportunity to go out and serve others. It's always been about them, and so that's just one more thing that we have to teach them, and it's something that we're glad to teach them. But it's huge to have volunteers in our program, but as well as with our student athletes. We spend a lot of time volunteering. Every Friday morning we have community service projects, whether it's mentoring, whether it's Habitat for Humanity. We do some stuff with Special Olympics and Miracle League, and it's all awesome.
Every Friday.
Every Friday, yep.
That's huge. Do you know of any other baseball teams or sports teams in the university system doing that often?
I don't.
Not that often.
No. There's a lot of athletic programs that are out there serving, but I don't know of anybody that does it every single week, every Friday morning, the way that we do it.
Boy, that keeps it out front, doesn't it?
It really
Absolutely.
does.
What have you seen happen to those students as a result of that? I mean, have you seen some things over the years? Doesn't have to be up to this day. What would you say the highlight has been, that one thing that kind of stood out when you're volunteering with those guys?
I think it's just to, when they first start, they're not always real excited about it. That first time or the first couple of times, they're not always all that excited about going and volunteering, and because there's other things. They want to be sleeping, or they want to be working out, or they want to be hitting in the cage. There's other things that student athletes and college age students want to be doing. That's just the truth of it. But once they go a few times and they start to build these relationships with these kids, when they start to build relationships with some of the handicapped young people, or even some of the older people that we get a chance to work with, it's just amazing to see how it changes them as people, how much more grateful they become for things. They complain less, and they're excited about going and serving. And that's, to me, that's that tops everything.
Yeah, I think it provides an opportunity too for them to become leaders, whether they know it or not, from the beginning of the semester to the end, and also provides an opportunity for them to, maybe blaze a career path that they didn't know they were interested in, just because of the people they're working with, or whether they're doing social media to advertise for the volunteer that they're doing. So I think it provides plenty of opportunities, whether they acknowledge it or not, from the beginning to the end. So,
Betsy, how many siblings are in your family?
there's 4 of us.
Okay, and the rest are brothers?
Older brother, 2 younger sisters.
Oh, 2 younger sisters. That's right.
Yep.
And here's what I've seen about you and Rich both, because I've known Rich separately. I've known you guys together. Had the privilege of watching you with the, I think it's volleyball girls,
Yes.
in the weight room, and going through some of those things. And I think sports injuries, you deal with a lot of sports injuries, or have
Yes,
over the
sir.
years. I see drivenness in both of you guys. Do you like to lose?
Not a whole lot.
Can you stand to
Not
lose?
fun. No, I mean, you have to learn to deal with it, but we don't like to do it.
I wouldn't say that I can't stand it, but I don't like it. I would much rather win.
The taste of winning is much sweeter.
But you do learn. I think the best coaches learn how to lose the right way, because at the end of the day, you still have to be an example for the 20-something student athletes that you're leading. And
Yeah.
if you don't lose well, then you're not teaching them a very good lesson. So you have to learn to lose, but that doesn't mean you have to like losing.
No, because your purpose is to win, but sometimes you have to go through the loss. And talked about that the other day. You got to fall and get up quickly. It's not a matter of
Absolutely.
whether or not you're going to fall. You're going to fail, but you got to get up quickly, and you go at it again.
Right.
And the quicker you get up. So, tell me how you guys met. Now, you were at Troy State. That's where you got your undergrad, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you were at Mercer. What a legacy! Then you went to FAU.
Yes, sir.
You ended up at FAU,
Yep.
assistant coach down there in baseball, and so take us from there. What
You
happened?
want to take
gosh.
it?
It's kind of a funny story, because Betsy was she was one of the athletic trainers. I mean, they have a whole athletic training room full of athletic trainers. And one of my jobs every day as the assistant baseball coach was to throw batting practice. I mean, every single day, that's what I did. And so, your arm gets tired, your arm starts hurting. It hurt before, probably before I even started throwing every day. It was already hurting. But so I just decided that one day I was going to go down to the athletic training room and see if somebody would stretch me out before I went through batting practice. It might have been before a game or for a fall practice or something like that. And so I asked Betsy it started with our baseball athletic trainer, and then she got busy with our baseball players. And so I asked Betsy one day to do it, and she stretched me out. And so I was like, well, that was pretty good. I felt good today. Maybe I'll go back tomorrow and try it again. And so I went back the next day, and so I started coming back for different things. I came back I used to come in and get like a Advil every single day, kind of like, oh, my arm hurts. Can I get an Advil? It's called Adaprin.
So you're finding excuses.
Right. And so one day Betsy came to my office, and she was just sitting, we were just sitting there talking, and she opened one of my desk drawers, and it was just full of Adaprins that I had not opened. And she was like, oh, so this is where all the Adaprins go. And so she caught me. She found out that was my excuse for coming down there. And we went to church together one Wednesday night, and we started dating shortly after that. And then, the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. And you both had something in common, your faith. But Fellowship of Christian Athletes, you were involved forever. Were you involved before you met him with Fellowship of Christian Athletes?
Sure, yeah. I was, all through middle school and high school. And then at Troy, one of my good friends, Tavon Arrington, who's the chaplain for UAB now, he led at Troy University. And then at Mercer, I got to know Coach Brown and a couple of the guys there that were involved in FCA. And then whenever I came down to FAU, Kim Smith and Coach Billings were leading FCA at the time, and so it was an easy way to plug in and get to know the student athletes outside of athletics specifically. So always been involved, always been a huge part of school in general, all from middle school through college and now afterwards. So
Tell us about Fellowship of Christian Athletes, FCA at Lake Sumter State, and why you do it.
It was something that we started last year. I don't really know how it started as both of us, but we got engaged right at the beginning of the school year last year. I asked her if she would come and just hang out. I thought it would be cool for her to be there and for the kids to get a chance to meet her. And
so it started being an every Monday night thing if I had off that night. So.
Yeah, so she started coming over every Monday night and helping me with FCA. And so when she got hired at the beginning of this school year, it was like, it was perfect. So we've kind of been tag teaming the FCA thing for a little over a year now. And we meet on Monday nights at 7 o'clock. I think last week might have been the record for attendance since I've been at Lake Sumter. We had, I think, just over 30 kids that showed up. So it was really awesome. We hosted at our house last week, and we had a great time of just Bible study and just encouragement and prayer. And every week it seems to get better and better. No matter what our plans for it are, because I think one thing that Betsy gets frustrated with me about is that I'm not always the most prepared when it comes to that stuff, because Monday sneaks up on you. So there's times where I'm
micro prepared for baseball, though, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. But I'm not always as prepared as I should be for FCA. But it seems like it doesn't matter. God always uses it however he has to, or however he chooses to make it something amazing.
Right, and that's sort of been our motto, that it's not our job to change their lives, it's our job to get them to show up, and God will work through them, so, and he'll speak to them. So
yeah, a friend of mine, Jack Larson, he had a whole communication sermon on the title was Just Show Up.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's weird when you're dealing in very specific strategy-driven vocations that you're in.
Yeah.
Right.
That it's not always about your preparedness. Sometimes it's just about showing up.
Right.
And then it works for some reason.
Absolutely.
Well, and I even think about one thing that you said that has always stuck with me, and I don't remember when you said this, but you told a story about somebody. I don't know if it was somebody that you just heard speak or whatever, but one of the guy's lines was, "What I have to say tonight isn't for everybody, but it's for somebody." And so that's kind of something that's something that's always stuck with me since I heard you talk about that. What we have to say or what we have to talk about that night may not be for everybody, but it's going to be for somebody. And even if it's just for one person, it's worth it.
So who is that one person that stands out as, wow, I really felt a connection with this person. I was able to be a great encouragement with them. Who is that for each of you?
Any school that we've been to?
It's got to be Kim.
Yeah, I would say Kim. That's what I was going to say too. We were thinking maybe that, as leaders, that we have something to give to them, but Kim Smith was giving to us just as much, I would say. She's one person that is, just grounded in her faith, and it's unwavering no matter where she's been. And she actually went to East Ridge, so she wasn't far down the road. But she's an unbelievable athlete in 3 sports. I think she played basketball, softball, and then one other, maybe volleyball. Yeah, she was an amazing triathlete, and for her, just to be able to be around her and feed off of her faith, even though we thought we were doing the same for her, and we have been, but we've remained really close since then. And I would say that's the one person that we could both agree on, and maybe would have said separately. I was going to say Kim as well, but she's unbelievable.
Yeah, and she was a basketball player at FAU.
Yeah,
so that was when we were at FAU.
Standout
She's not
athlete.
even a Lake Sumter student athlete, but we got to know her through FCA down there and found out that she was from Claremont and went to East Ridge High School, and she had an older brother that played baseball as well and played at South Florida State College, and then I think he played at Embry-Riddle. And they're a really neat family, and they're some of the best athletes I think I've ever seen come out of one family. So
that's huge.
Awesome.
I want to take you to what people really want to know, and what really all of us can relate with. What was your worst coaching moment to date? I mean, anywhere in your past till now, whether you're coaching or whether it was in athletics, but what was it?
Man.
I know there have been moments where we set expectations for our student athletes, and I think there have probably been multiple moments where I have not followed through with those same expectations on my end. So I'm asking them to do something, yet I'm doing the complete opposite, just out of frustration, whether it's slamming a helmet or losing your temper in the dugout, embarrassing a kid on the field, kind of, not because you're doing it intentionally, but it turns out that maybe I should have handled that. Maybe I should have waited till he came off the field before I got on to him for making that error, or for not paying attention, or whatever the case may be. I would say for me, that is my biggest struggle, and something that I have really, since last year even, I have really, really worked on to correct. Just trying to become a more positive person. I spent most of the summer just reading and listening to talks and TED Talks and reading books on
love TED Talks,
just on how to be more positive, and because that's something that you can struggle with and not even know, until you get so far in. You can turn around and go, well, when did I become this negative person that I'm looking at in the mirror? When did that happen? And you can't even pinpoint when it happened, but it's just it's a progression. Sometimes it's quick and sometimes it's slow, but it's something that I had to kind of pump the brakes on, and I had to be intentional about changing my attitude, because my players could see it probably more than anybody.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't fair to them.
Yeah. We're the sum total of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. That's what Jim Rohn said,
Yeah.
John Lee Dumas on EO Fire, which I listen to a lot on podcasts. So those people will start pulling you down. He would often say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to change rooms. So what about you, Betsy?
I can't think of anything specifically that was just the worst moment ever, but kind of as a generalization to play off what he said, I think in the career of athletic training, there's a lot of time that we spend either, in the athletic training room or on the field or on the court, and a lot of our time gets poured into that. So just taking a step back and remembering what our purpose is, because for us specifically, because of what we believe in, and I think our purpose is more so driven by what we can achieve while at the time that they're there, the student athletes. So we may have a year with them or 2 years with them or 4 years with them, but just taking a step back from athletics specifically and sort of pouring into them in a different venue, and being able to lead them and guide them. And I've had moments or athletes where I had no idea what was going on outside of their life, and that changed my perspective sometimes. Not that I was judgmental, but it was frustrating because they were frustrating athletes to deal with. They weren't compliant, and they didn't want to do what I asked them, and they were always injured, that sort of thing. So just sort of learning to hone in on that and become a little bit wiser in terms of my profession, and always remembering what our true purpose is. So.
Well, and you said something key there. You don't know what has happened outside of your arena with them.
Right.
And one thing that teachers and youth workers say that their aha moment with students was when they found out where they lived, and found out what they'd gone through. One particular kid, his dad had been murdered the night before, and they were wondering why this kid was incompliant and just going crazy. And they went to where he lived and found out that he had just gone through a murder the night before.
Right.
Of course he's not compliant. Of course he's angry. You know.
Changes their perspective for sure.
Changes perspective, that's right. And you deal with, how many students do you think you deal with a semester?
How many do we have? 100?
75 to 80 students.
At a high level. Ferraris and Rolls Royces and those type of cars, Bentleys, they have to have a mechanic quite often. And you guys are dealing with those type of people. They have to be tweaked constantly because they are rare.
Absolutely.
And so they require a lot too, because they're giving a lot.
Right. That's a perfect explanation. I would say, if you're looking at, and specifically in my profession or in general for baseball, when you're specializing for a pitcher or a position player, if you were, regular old Joe and you had an injury, you may go to physical therapy 2, maybe 3 times max a week. But for them, dealing with an injury in college athletics at the level that they're at, it may be 6 or 7 times a week, sometimes twice a day. And same for them. I'm sure you can account for many hours that you've spent, trying to change someone's arm slot or their, the way they hit or the way they run or whatever the case is. So they definitely require more maintenance than the regular guy.
And the average athlete would have just dropped out with one of those injuries. And these guys are coming back and going, no, I got to get back out there, fix me.
Right.
Let's go. Rehab's going too slow. How much money over and above? We just did a golf tournament for the sports program. And how much money over and above what you get from the state or county or federal level, how much money does it take over and above? If you really got everything you needed, how much more?
Man.
I don't know. You would be able to answer that question. But
Give me a guess.
I honestly have no idea. I would say over and above what we already use to buy uniforms and travel and umpires and officials and all that stuff. At Lake Sumter, I would say probably another $100,000. That would be my guess, to get everything that we needed and to make the upgrades that, that not necessarily that we need. We've got really nice facilities, but to make the upgrades that, that help us to keep up with some of these other schools. Yeah, I would say at least $100,000.
At least. Okay,
Yeah.
now I want you to give Youth Worker Nation a way to get in touch with you guys. Not something that's going to intrude your private life, but is there an email? Should they go to social media? How do they get in touch with you? And then I'm going to say something about fundraising.
For me, you can reach me via email at Billings, BILLINGS.Betsy, BETSY@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram, and it's bets.billings. Just no SY at the end of that.
And then I am Billing with no S on the end, billingr@lssc.edu. I have Twitter, that's rbillings13. I think that's the same as my Instagram as well. So we're on social media. You can find us there.
The Youth Worker Nation, what I want to tell you is if you have access to funds, I don't believe that anyone working in these professions should ever have to raise funds. I think it's just wrong because they're already sacrificing so much time over and above their pay scale. Every teacher, every coach, every youth pastor, these volunteers. And if there's someone out there who has the money the fundraisers are great. The golf tournament is awesome, but there is so much time that coaches and athletic directors are spending. Make sure that you get that money to them. Anything that you've got there, and support your other youth pastors and coaches and schools. Don't think that's what they deserve. They got to get out there and work. No, they're already working, and this is way over and above. And so, thank you so much for coming today. You guys are just awesome. I'm so glad you're able to get married in May.
Yeah, we were too.
And this is Youth Worker Nation, Youth Worker on Fire. See you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.